Everybody's flocking to Florida. At $1.8 trillion, the Sunshine State's economy now ranks 14th in the world, reportedly overtaking Australia and Mexico. Corporate America is buying in. Google quadrupling its Miami office footprint as its co-founders flee California for South Florida. But success comes at a price. In a report finding the cost of living in the Gold Coast, we're talking Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Palm Beach, now surpassing the cost of New York City for the first time ever. I want to bring in Fox News contributor and former Miami Mayor Francis Suarez. And you're also working with Ken Griffin and Stephen Ross to woo more companies to southern Florida. How can Miami keep prices down?
Well, first, you have to recognize that part of the reason why that's happening is because demand is at an all-time high. People want to come to Miami. When you create, and Palm Beach and Broward, when you create an ecosystem that is attractive to people, as opposed to what's happened in New York, where you have a second home tax, where you have, a mayor and a congresswoman at one point who said no to Amazon after they won the HQ2 prize and was openly hostile to businesses, you're going to have an impact. So Miami is slightly higher in cost of living, according to the study, than New York. But what the study doesn't tell you is how incomes are increasing. We have the highest median wage growth in America in the Gold Coast area, broadly defined as Palm Beach through Miami, and how, we have much lower tax rate, including no state income tax, than the state of New York and the city of New York. So when you combine all that, it's much less expensive to live in our ecosystem than it is in New York, and we're attracting people and they're repelling people.
Do you worry that when you hear stories about a firefighter or a teacher or a cop that can't afford to live in Miami, does that concern you about the affordability crunch that we're seeing, in particular in your former city that you were mayor of?
Of course, you want to make sure that, everyone who works in your city has an opportunity to live in your city. And we've done a variety of things, very differently, by the way, than what New York does. New York does things that make you feel good in the short run by government intervention that is holistic, like price controls, but creates housing shortages in the long run. What we've done is we've worked with the private sector, either through legislation such as the Live Local Act at the state of Florida level that has 69,000 units in the workforce and affordable housing range coming online. I put together a package of reforms in our zoning code called Miami 21, where developers could avail themselves of those reforms without ever even having to get permission from the council. That was an affordable housing piece of legislation, which created thousands of units of affordable housing.
I mentioned at the top of your introduction there about Ken Griffin. He is somebody that has been vilified by the mayor of New York City, him standing in front of his New York City apartment. I know that you're working with him now and Stephen Ross to do these build outs and to really continue to put the focus on Florida. Do you think Ken Griffin leaves New York?
I can't speak for Ken in that sense, but what I can tell you is that he has taken dramatic action and made some pretty bold statements after he was singled out and attacked by the mayor of New York. By contrast, in Miami, we're doing everything that we can to make him feel welcome. He's one of the largest philanthropists that we have, along with Steve Ross and others in our community, and so we want those people to be successful. We want their companies to be successful. He's about to make a multi-billion-dollar investment in a commercial tower in the city of Miami, which is going to create, more space for more companies to come to the city. And that's something that we're also getting record high rents in terms of commercial spaces, and we have record low vacancy rates. So that all demonstrates that the Miami economy is thriving and that's going to increase wages, which is the other component of affordability, right? You can afford things if your wages go up, even if your costs go up as well.
All right. Well, New York, California, and New Jersey are among the top states driving the exodus to Florida. The migration wave continues, but there's concern now that they're going to bring their politics with them down to Miami. Does that worry you?
Well, I have to give the governor a lot of credit. One of the things he's done in the state of Florida is really focus on registration. And whereas Florida used to be a purple state, now it has about 1 million vote registration advantage for Republicans. We did see Miami-Dade County and the city of Miami go blue, which I think is oftentimes a reaction to our success. In other words, people that are liberal or socialist, and I'm not saying that those particular mayors are socialist, but people who are liberal oftentimes will try to make the counter argument that our success is really someone else's failure. We have to make sure that we continue to explain to people why Republican and conservative conservative policies are what drive the most prosperity, and not some of these liberal and or socialist policies.
My thanks to Francis Suarez. All right, I've got one more thing that you need to know ahead of next week. That is next.